Canuck.
Off the cuff and coffee with Liz, bringing you together, chance I get. Shout outs and tributes and what you're snacking on, Liz. Liz digging canoe, bringing you together. Liz digging Canuck, get ready for the show.
Good morning to everyone. My name is Liz. This is Coffee with Liz, and every other Sunday morning, I have a casual conversation with some of your favorite YouTubers, and today is no exception because in a few moments, I will be chatting to none other than Chris, who is known as the BirdDogg. Right on. It is going to be a great show. If you can share this stream and broaden the audience, I would really, really appreciate that. If talking and having casual conversations with some of your favorite YouTube personalities is something that gets you all warm and excited, please consider subscribing to the channel. And when you do, you got to hit that notification bell and tell YouTube you want to be advised whenever I go live and chat with some of your favorites. My goodness, everyone, let's all collectively take like a second and a half. Doesn't even take that long. Hit the like button on this stream. It not only helps the stream to rank a little bit higher, but just one day we might be suggested on someone's homepage, and the amount of people in that chat that you see scrolling on your screen is going to be like to the power of 10. How cool would that be? That would be like extremely cool. So right on. Now, as I do on any live stream, I need to say hello to each and every one of you, because if you weren't out there watching, I'd pretty much be talking to myself and Miley, and that really wouldn't be that much fun. Or the gentlemen who wear white might, put me in one of these and haul me out, and we really don't want to see that. So I am going to try to say hello to each and every one of you, and if I do miss saying hello to you, just put an @DiggingCanuck in your comment, and I will definitely see it because it highlights on my end. So, my goodness, the very, very first person in the chat was David McLean. David McLean, welcome to Rookie Membership. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much, David. Right on. Treasure Talk, Jeff. Jeff is in the house. And I think that tomorrow, and Jeff, please correct me if I'm not wrong, but tomorrow I believe that Casey from Excalibur Shovels is going to be your guest. I think that is happening tomorrow. Let me know or confirm or deny it. I would appreciate that. So right on. The Canadian Relic Recon, Steve. Front and center. Thank you, Steve, for joining. Frederick Romano in the house as well. Frederick, thank you so much for joining me. Oh my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, the legend himself, yes, Heath from the History Seekers is in the house. Wow, thank you so much for joining, Heath. Wow, wonderful. Who, if you don't know who Heath from the History Seekers is, I suggest that you subscribe to the channel. Tremendous content from the History Seekers. Finding Alabama says, morning, y'all. Morning to Finding Alabama. El Nino Vasquez says, hola. Hola to you and bienvenidos. Right on. My goodness. I'm going to have to figure out how to say right on in other languages. Marcos Carvalho de Sertão says, bom dia, meu amigo. Parabéns a você. And obrigada por ter vindo. 𝗦𝗛𝗢𝗪𝗡𝗡. So right on, right on. Yes, the digging Canuck can speak a few different languages. So right on, right on. That was Portuguese, by the way. Fluent. I am fluent in Portuguese. CBI digging it. CBI in the house. Thank you so much for joining. The Illinois Digger says, morning, ma'am. Morning, sir. Right on, right on. B. Higgles is also here with us today. Mark Fiorella, did I say? I don't know if I said hello or not, but hello. Peterson PP, metal detecting from the Czech Republic is here today. Right on, right on. Metal detecting Maddie G. Right on, right on. Steve Shepard. Steve Shepard is going to be part of the Great Canadian Collab. If you didn't watch my little teaser video on the channel, definitely watch it after the show. Not right now, but after the show. Randolph Relic Recovery says, lurking and working. That's okay. I appreciate you making the effort. Metal Detecting Brooklyn Richard is in the house. Richard, thank you so very much. Who else is here? Nick Molnar, also going to be part of the Great Canadian Collab. Dan Anderson. Dan is in the house. Dan, thank you very much for joining me today. Let's see. Dennis Farley is in the house. Dennis, no, we are not doing a giveaway today. Just the guest. Who else? Who else is here? Patty Disharoon. Patty, thank you for joining. Right on, right on. David Carlisle, also here. Thank you, David. Lisa P. Lisa P is here as well. Thank you very much, Lisa. Let's see. I am really trying to scroll without missing anybody. Detecting Our Past. Detecting Our Past is here. Thank you for joining. Exploring with the Nug. Holy smokes, Jeremy. Right on, right on. How y'all doing? I'm doing fine, Jeremy. And I hope everyone that's watching is also doing fine. Skid Marks the Spot. Great channel name. He's here with us. Thank you. And the BirdDogg Chris is in the chat. He's in the green room as we speak. Liz, do you have a new mic? The last time I listened sounds good. Heath, I have been majorly like binge watching other videos to get the settings right. I have the what is this? The Blue Yeti. I have the Blue Yeti, but I just had it using standard factory settings. Like I said, I watched a video. I have an equalizer for it now. I have some filters with the equalizer, and yeah, it's definitely changed the way I sound. I think it sounds a lot better. Who else? My goodness. I am gonna go. No, I was gonna say I think I'm done, but I'm not. Gabriel Barlow. Gabriel, thank you. I think I have said hello to each and every one of you. Like I said, if I have missed saying hello to you, it is absolutely not intentional. I would never do that. It does scroll really fast on my end. So if I missed saying hello to you, put an @DiggingCanuck in the chat or in your comment, and it'll highlight on my end, and I will say, holy smokes, I didn't say hello to this person. And I will. All right. Todd Carson. Todd just joined us. He says, good morning from upstate New York. Right on, right on. Todd, thank you so much for joining. I do appreciate that. All right. I am certain I have said hello to each and every one of you. Now, My goodness, I have to bring my guest on. It is an absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Let me bring Chris into the there he is. Oh my goodness, Chris. Welcome to Coffee with Liz, Chris.
Howdy, everybody. I hope everybody's doing all right. Just been sitting here watching Digging Canuck. So.
Right on, right.
Is the audio sound all right? It sounds
Yes.
very, very reverby to me for some reason.
I'm not getting any reverb.
Okay, good.
So
it's just me.
We will definitely go with it. Now, Chris, the origins of the name BirdDogg, where did that come from?
It actually came from quite a while ago, hunting with my dad and his relic hunting buddies. My dad is who got me into metal detecting. I grew up in Colonial, Virginia, near Yorktown, Virginia. And as I was growing up, Dad was metal detecting, basically my whole life. And kind of got introduced to it through him. But growing up, I wasn't really too into it until I was a teenager, later in my teenager years, as far as metal detecting goes. And it seemed like every time him and his friends would take me out, I would walk straight into a field and find an amazing relic. And then the rest of the day, I wouldn't find anything. So they always say he's like a bird dog. He'll point where the relics are, but then he's useless. So that was kind of how it all got started with that. And it just sort of evolved into a good channel name, I guess.
Now, it's quite obvious that you have an incredible passion for the Civil War, specifically the Civil War. Now, did that come because that's pretty much where the area that you live in, or how did that come about, the actual Civil War stuff?
Well, growing up in Virginia, most of what we dug was colonial, although there was a lot of Civil War sort of mixed in here and there. And honestly, I can't tell you where the passion for Civil War came from, other than my dad, I guess. Some of my first relic hunting trips where we would actually leave the house and go somewhere to hunt were to a battlefield in Kentucky, Perryville battlefield, rather. And I think some of my first great finds were Civil War related, and something about that battle just really connected with me, and with the Civil War really connected with me. And it just kind of became my focus. And now, essentially, if I'm out metal detecting, that's what I'm looking for. And of course, I find a lot of other stuff coincidentally, but typically that's what I'm looking for, is Civil War items.
Now, your channel description actually reads, I'm going to read this. It says, I am a professional musician, freelance writer, and relic hunter from Virginia who now lives in the mountains of Tennessee. So we're going to first be discussing the relic hunting side, and if we do have some time, sure, I wouldn't mind talking about your how do I say it, musicianship, or your being a musician, I guess. So is that all right with you?
Sure.
All
sure.
right. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So I am gonna right off the bat, we're gonna get into it. Now, the very first video that you uploaded on your actually, let's go back a little bit. What was the reasoning for creating the YouTube channel?
Well, I think a lot of times just it was to document. I for a long time kept a log, and I still do keep a log of every relic I find and where I found it, when I found it. And it gives each relic kind of provenance, because ultimately I'll be gone, but these relics will still be here. Yes. And it'd be great for everybody to know where they came from and when they were found, and things like that. So I had been documenting very extensively everything I had been finding to begin with. And this seemed like a much easier way to do it. I didn't have to write anything down. And it also, I have a daughter who's now 25 years old. She lives in Brooklyn, New York. She's a psychiatrist, and she's not super interested in what I'm doing metal detecting wise, but I know there'll come a time when she'll be very interested in seeing her dad and what he was doing. So it's just sort of a documentation process. And along the way, it's just grown, you know, the ability to share what little I do know with everyone else, and just share my adventures. You know, it's fun to get out there. So,
so your first video, you were seen, or you were shown digging a Civil War breastplate. Now, for those of us, myself included, that aren't familiar, we see a lot of people dig these round and oval discs. Some people call them breastplates, box plates, and that sort of thing. Can you kind of like walk us through the different plates that you have found as a Civil War detectorist?
Sure. Well, I found a lot of plates, but there are different varieties, as you alluded to. There are breastplates, which went on a cartridge box. They had a leather strap that went across their shoulder and went down to their little cartridge box where they held all their ammunition. And the breastplates went in sort of the center of that. They were often discarded because it was just a big shiny circle of brass in the center of your chest. And, you know, if you've ever stood in a field looking across, it's the first thing that catches your eye is a shiny thing. So I think a lot of them looked at it as just a big shiny target on their chest for the enemy to shoot at. So a lot of those got discarded. And I think that's probably the most common plate that gets found here in the U.S. associated with the Civil War are breastplates.
Now, are those the round ones with the bird on them, or the eagle?
They are.
Okay.
They are.
Okay.
And it's probably the most common plate. A lot of people have found them. And it's still neat, though, and there are different varieties. There's actually several different varieties of circular breastplates, and also ones without an eagle. There's some from different states. There's Confederate ones even. There's some from South Carolina that were that oval, and other states and militia units also did that. And then from there, you move on to the actual cartridge box itself, where all the bullets were stored. And they had oftentimes cartridge box plates, which looked very much like a belt plate that would say US or something similar, the school affiliation. And those were mounted right on the leather flap of the cartridge box.
Okay.
And then, of course, you have just a standard belt plate, which, you know, there were, again, many varieties. I think there was over 200 varieties of belt plates during the Civil War. So
wow,
quite a selection of different types. Personally, I've found 13 plates, as you would call them. And many things can qualify as a plate. One of my favorite finds ever is what is known as a martingale plate. And it went on a horse's chest. It's a heart. It's a heart shape. And in fact, if you give me just 1 second,
sure,
I'll grab it.
Absolutely.
All right. So this is a martingale plate. And
Wow.
I'm trying to get it where the light is.
That's really nice. Wow.
And this actually has the leather still on the back of it. They called it the safe, the leather safe. And that was what attached to the strap that went around the horse's chest. This came down and mounted on a horse's chest. I'm going to try and pull it out here and show you the
Now, Chris,
leather.
would that be somebody of a high rank, A, to have the horse, and B, to have like the plate on the straps?
Well, you know, we've debated that a lot. Where this was found in Perryville. And this was found in a field that's now part of the battlefield that Clayburn, General Patrick Clayburn, had his horse shot out from under him in this field, and his horse was killed there. And I've always kind of in my mind speculated, could this have been his horse's? But you can kind of see the leather here on the back.
Wow.
And you can even see, let me try and get some light, a little more light here. Sorry. You can even
that's
see
perfect. Yeah.
You can even see this where the stitching went through in the back of this.
Wow, that's a heck of a relic. Wow.
And this was in a muddy ditch that every time we went, it was never cut off. Really high grass. And we happened to go one time, and all the grass was cut off in this muddy ditch. And
Mhm.
my first thought was, I'm going to get in there and find a cannonball. But I got in there and found this instead, and the mud had preserved that leather because it had stayed wet. And that muddy ditch had been a muddy ditch since the Civil War, pretty much.
Wow,
So
that is unbelievable. That is a fabulous relic.
thank you.
Wow.
It's one of my favorites.
Wow. Yeah, and
But
I
so
can tell why.
This counts as a plate too, though. So there was, like I said, many different varieties of plates. They didn't just have to be a belt plate.
Mm-hmm. Right on. Now, in that very first video, I think you were using the AT Pro. Do you still use that?
I do. Although I've gone through many different metal detectors at this point, but typically in the water, I'm going to be using the AT Pro or AT Max, and there's a very specific reason for that. Water hunting, if any of you have tried it, it's very difficult. It's much like land hunting. You're going to dig up everything under the sun. And so what I do is I've narrowed down the window of targets that are acceptable to me in the water. And there's very specific targets I'm looking for when I'm out looking for Civil War relics. I'm either looking for artillery, or I'm looking for signs that would tell me that there were Civil War troops there. And that's typically mini balls, bullets, Civil War bullets from the Civil War. And those are very specific signals. And the AT series, both the AT Pro, the AT Gold, the AT Max, they lock on to those specific signals in a way that no other machine does, to where I know exactly, I'm sorry, I'm going to adjust this light again. I know exactly what those signals sound like. And so, and for me, when you're in the water, sound is everything, because you oftentimes your screen's underwater, you aren't going to see the numbers. And so those specific sounds of the AT series are kind of the reason that I'm stuck with them. It's no particular loyalty or anything like that. It's just what works. So, and I have used the Simplex and the Amphibio both in the water, and I can use them in the water. I just am able to move a lot faster with the AT series because of my familiarity with the tones. And I think anybody will have that, whatever machine you're comfortable with.
Yes.
The machine you need to be hunting with.
Exactly.
Regardless of what anybody says. Because if you're uncomfortable, you're not going to find anything, or you're going to fight it the whole day. You're going to fight it.
So do you prefer hunting, if you could only hunt in a certain area, would you prefer water hunting, or would you be back trying to, like, on land?
Land hunting is miserable when, in my mind, compared to water hunting. And if you asked other people, it would be the opposite. I bet you if you asked Heath Jones, he would say the exact opposite. He would say, no, I don't want to get in that water. And so it's kind of, although I have seen him in the water more recently, which makes me happy. If I had to choose, I would choose water hunting. I'd do it year round, just because it's, even on days when I don't find anything, it's still a big adventure. And, it feels like I've done something. I went out and I've gotten in my boat and I've paddled, and, it's just a bigger adventure.
Now, you can't hunt in the water year round. I would imagine the water down there does get cold.
It does. But you can, if you're determined. And I think the latest I've hunted is late November, and then the earliest I've gotten started was like late January. So it's a short window of time when it's fully impossible. Now, I will say, in like January and February, I'm usually out there in like knee deep water. I'm not up to my neck or anything like I am in August. Or diving underwater or anything like that. So,
right on. Now, do you do a lot of research beforehand before you even find a place that you think this is going to have some good stuff?
Absolutely.
Like, there's no randomness to what you do, I would imagine.
Not a lot. Although to a degree there is. If I if I'm hunting on land or even in the water, I often look for the routes that troops would have taken. And luckily there's a lot of resources available. The Civil War was very well documented for the time, as best as they could document without GPS and everything else. But it was very well documented. There was a lot of reports written, a lot of letters written, a lot of maps drawn, and cross-referencing those certainly helps. With that said, Civil War relic hunting has become increasingly popular in the United States. There are a lot of people doing it. And if it's easy to find, like if you can go to the bookstore and buy a generic Civil War book and it tells you about all the battles of the Civil War, if you can find that battle in that book, you're probably not going to find many relics. And so you have to dig much deeper as far as research goes to kind of get to spots that maybe nobody's found. And so that's a whole process in and of itself. Mapping, looking at old maps, digging through the official records of the Civil War, and doing that. But at the end of the day, it's like any other relic hunting. It all boils down to legwork. I mean, you're going to have to, if you figure out where you think they were, you're still going to have to go and put boots on the ground and oftentimes walk a lot of miles, because a description of a location from 150 years ago can be hard to nail down. If they say we were in Greene County at Miss Scott's 3 miles down from the branch on the old creek. Well, I mean, oh, that's where you were, so that becomes still very difficult to nail down in modern times.
Now, do you think that there still are some sites that maybe nobody has figured out or been to? Really?
Tons of them. And again, I think, while most of my sites are research driven, there's a lot that I just stumble upon by, like I said, going to the old roads. Like if I know they traveled the old stage road between Abington, Virginia and Bristol, Virginia, then, that road's still there. You can go follow that road and look for farmers' fields. And you think about logical things. Well, if you're moving 10,000 men with 5,000 horses, you got to have water. So any place where there's water along that road, they've stopped. I mean,
yes,
guaranteed 100% they stopped.
Yes.
Water was one of the biggest things they had to have. And it was always a struggle. There was battles fought over water. So, you still can stumble onto sites like that. And it happens all the time. I mean, I've definitely found a lot of sites that nobody had ever been on. So.
Right on. Good stuff. Now, I think that most of us, when we hear the name BirdDogg, like I'm suddenly taken to the Civil War. Could we talk about some of the different kind of relics from the Civil War?
Sure.
Can we talk about cannonballs first? Would you mind?
Sure. I can grab a couple. Hold on.
Sure.
We'll start with these for now. Try not to drop anything. Okay. So cannonballs per se, as you're describing them, most people think of something like this. It's just a round ball. And these could be in many different forms. These could be solid. These could be a shell, or these could be a shot, as they called them. So this one was explosive. And I'm kind of letting you see inside. This is a 6-pound Confederate Borman cannonball. And it would have had a fuse like this on the front of it. So this is another one identical, except the fuse is in this one. The fuse is not in this one. And these were filled with, well, it's hard to, everything's backwards on these cannons.
I know, it's really hard.
So these were filled with these, they look like little sweet tarts of death. They're just, gosh, everything's backwards. It's just a little disc of iron, and sometimes they
Wow.
were filled with balls. Sometimes they were filled with mini balls. But this one in particular had these little iron discs in it, and it was also filled with pitch, pine tar pitch, basically pine tar. And so when this would explode, all these little pieces of metal would fly out along with boiling pine tar. Very destructive.
Yeah.
And these came in a lot of different sizes. This is a 6-pounder. I have 12-pounders back there. There's, well, you can't see. There's a huge.
So what would be the biggest
45-pounder.
Oh, wow.
There's a 45-pounder is the biggest one I've found. That's that's an 8-inch mortar shell, but they had them up to like 200 pounds, I think. Big. They had big, giant.
Are these big cannonballs? Are they being used against people, or would they be used to try and take some structures out?
Both.
Really?
So, a shell, an explosive shell, like these ones with the fuses, they were basically designed for, take out personnel. And a solid shot would have been designed to shoot it like a fortification, try and knock that sort of thing down.
Okay, yes.
And they also had other, artillery shells were being developed during the Civil War as well. This one is the nose section of a Hotchkiss shell.
Wow.
And it had a brass fuse adapter in the front there. And so during the Civil War, and really war in general, is the driver of more invention and innovation than anything else in the world. There's nothing that has driven invention more than war. During the Civil War, there was over 500 different types of bullets being fired. There's over 100 and something different types of artillery being fired, and stuff being developed throughout the war. These Hotchkiss shells were developed, during the war, as were many other types of shells that, most people wouldn't associate. Let me grab one more. So this is a Schenkel shell, and a lot of people wouldn't even think that was artillery to look at it. This is a bad dog who's wanting to be involved. But that has the fuse in the nose too. And that one's actually labeled with the date, like 1861 in the nose.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
It was developed during the war, specifically for the war. So, it's artillery's kind of become my passion now, just because it's such a tangible relic. If I hand somebody a bullet, they're like, oh, that's neat. I hand them something like this, and they're like, is that gonna blow up? And I'm like, not anymore.
So when you find these in the ground or in the water, is there a remote chance that the fuse might go off, or are they like totally dead?
There's definitely a chance these could go off.
Really?
I have a video where I've drill one and defuse it, and I pull the powder out of it, and not only will the powder light, you can get the powder soaking wet, and it'll still light while it's soaking wet. So now, not all of them are live, and in many cases, water's gotten in, degraded the powder. It's not live at all anymore. And in most cases, I will say. But with that said, many of these shells were well designed and were watertight throughout the course of not only the war, but for 150 years, they're still watertight. And so, and airtight. And so they're still full of powder. They're still full of pitch, and still probably explosive. So
wow. Now is the type of like either cannonball or artillery shell, is the type indicative of which side fired it? Or
it can be.
It can. So did they have a lot of similar, artillery and stuff?
Well, there was crossover, and there was standardized bore sizes, how big around the bore was.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, in theory, you could cram a lot of stuff down a cannon and fire it if you wanted. You could fire a coffee can full of nails.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, they had things called canister, which were very much like a coffee can, and it had balls and different things stacked inside. And when they fired that, everything just went out like a shotgun. But with that said, while there are similarities and there's crossover where, you know, the Confederates could grab some Yankee ammunition if they saw it
Mm-hmm.
and stick it in their cannon, but there are also exclusive shells to each side that may have been obtained by the other side and used,
Mm-hmm.
but that were solely manufactured by either the South or the North.
Okay. All right. Now, the cannonballs and the shells that you showed us, you've obviously cleaned and preserved them.
Mm-hmm.
Is that? Can you just take us through just a typical cannonball that you find that you dig out of the ground?
Sure. And I have some pictures up. I can put them up. I think I've got them up there. I don't know if it'll let you just show them.
Let's try that.
If so, maybe I can get to some things that'll.
Yeah,
help
let's try and do that. Tell me when I can share the screen.
You can share it.
Okay.
Whenever. I'm just.
All right. I'm gonna try to do this, and I hope this works. I'm gonna try and share the full screen. Let's see. Let's try this. Okay, I think it's working.
Okay. What do you see? You see a cannonball there?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a lot of times what they're going to look like when I find them. They're going to be covered in moss, you know, rust, all kinds of stuff. I'm trying to scroll. I've got 1,000 pictures here. There's another cannonball kind of fresh out of the water. So typically I would knock any scale off of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would go into electrolysis. I'm trying to find some pictures of that sort of in process. There's so many pictures here to go through, but so there's some artillery shells right there.
Mm-hmm.
Again, they're rusty. I would typically take maybe a hammer, knock off any big rust,
Mm-hmm.
and then put them into electrolysis. And they would stay in electrolysis for anywhere from an hour to 5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And if electrolysis is done right, it doesn't take long at all.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm just scrolling through these pictures. I figured they're more interesting than my face. But so it'll go in electrolysis for a few hours. It comes out, and then I will boil it in a mixture of baking soda and water, and that sort of neutralizes any of the acids and different things that are built up in it.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, that was a good day. There's, 7 artillery shells there laying on the rocks. But I will then I put them in boiling wax, and you boil them until basically they stop bubbling, and that forces any remaining water content out of the iron, and helps keep it from continuing to degrade. So I have some videos on it as well that you can pull up and see as how to do it. So
all right, I'm gonna try and bring you back here. There you go. You're back on the screen right now. Good stuff. So I just have a question about the cannonballs, because I was gifted an 18-pound cannonball, steel. I guess it's all steel, and it was fired by the Americans in the War of 1812 in the Niagara region, and that to me is like unbelievable that I was gifted that. But it's I don't believe it's ever been like preserved, and it's starting to rust now.
So
what do you suggest?
There's a lot of different things you can do. You can do electrolysis. You can do a vinegar treatment, and this is to remove the rust. But there's also a treatment that is called rust conversion. There's a product that they sell called a rust converter. 𝗥𝗢𝗢𝗪𝗏s is the best company that makes it. There's a company called 𝗥𝗢𝗪𝗏s. If you look it up, you can find it. The stuff's not cheap, but it's handy to have for anybody who's a relic hunter, because we find lots of cool iron relics. I found knives, and I've found bits and swords, and, you know, parts of guns, gun barrels. And there's a lot of things that you might not be able to boil a vat of wax big enough for.
Okay.
You know, and it sounds like maybe your cannonball might be that case.
Yeah,
and,
I think so.
and plus the wax process, quite frankly, is dangerous. You know, you're bringing up wax to like 350, 400 degrees, and it's dangerous. So you can get this product called Gsmpler's. It's a rust converter. You paint it on. So you paint it onto your relic, and when you first paint it on, it turns your whole relic purple, and you're like, what did I do? But as it dries, it starts to dry, and it turns like a perfect kind of flat matte black.
Oh, okay.
And I'm trying to think if I have something here. I do. So just one second.
I want to say hello to the metal detecting channel, Outdoorsy Gal O. Ivy and Dad, Metal Detecting UK. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for joining, folks. Hit the like button.
Right on.
So this ball was done with Gsmpler's.
Oh.
Because it was degrading. This ball actually, the water can sometimes leach the iron content out if the water's very acidic. And this ball is actually sort of oblong. It's hard to tell, but it's been eaten up so much. And I didn't want to stick it in electrolysis because it's very harsh.
Yeah.
Electrolysis can be, and I didn't want this thing to just fall apart.
Yes.
So I used Gsmpler's instead.
Okay.
So the difference in Gsmpler's and wax, I mean, it's not
a whole lot of a difference. I gotta say, I would be thrilled if I could turn my cannonball into that. That would be wonderful.
Right. So order you some Gsmpler's, and you know, throw it on there. I mean, a lot of people are real particular about, oh, you got to do this, you got to do that. Look, you know, this thing's been in the ground 150 years with nobody doing anything to it. If anything you can do to preserve it is going to be helpful, as long as it's something that is reversible. And that's the one kind of caveat I would give anyone on any restoration, preservation project they do, is to try and make it something reversible. So if you fully screw up, you know, someone down the line in the future can say, this guy totally screwed this up, like, we can fix it. And wax is great for that reason, because if I'm unhappy with the wax job, or someone else is unhappy with the wax job, they can stick it in an oven at 350 for 20 minutes and it's gonna be off. You know, so Gsmpler's is a little bit more permanent, but it will come right off with like a thinner.
Okay. That's actually good to know, because I honestly thought that that electrolysis was the only thing, and I just really couldn't figure out how you do that on a cannonball.
Now, what I will tell you about Gsmpler's, and there's many other rust converters out there, but you have to make sure it's a tannic acid rust converter. Gsmpler's is all I can recommend.
Okay, that's fine.
I've used other ones, and they don't look as good.
Okay.
And the other thing about Gsmpler's that I will state is paint it on as thin of a coat as possible. One coat, let it dry, see how it looks. If you need to go back again, as thin as possible. Because the thicker you go, the more it'll start to look like a black piece of plastic.
Yeah, we don't want that.
Right.
Now, Chris, I have a question from the chat from Dan Anderson. He says, can you ask Chris what the cannonballs ring up as iron negative or positive ID?
So, again, this kind of goes back to which machine you're using, and, you know, as to how it's going to react. I don't know every machine. I'm not sure how your machine may react. A Garrett AT Pro or AT Max or AT Gold, typically a cannonball is going to ring up between 30 and 45, somewhere in that region. And the other important thing about the AT Pro to me is their proximal audio. meaning the closer you get to a signal, the more intense your signal gets. Where it's out here, it's like, and so learning to visualize the size of your target without looking, getting the feel for like, oh yeah, that's a big chunk of iron. And there's a very specific sound. And other things will sound that way, an axe head or a window weight, something dense. It's going to sound like a big, dense piece of iron. And yeah, they typically read between 30 and 45, and it's a mid tone on that Garrett AT Pro. It's not most people would think it was going to be an iron grunt.
Yeah. Yes.
But it's actually a mid tone.
Oh, okay.
I
dig a mid tone for sure.
It's a very big, steady mid tone, though. I mean, it's like wah, wah, and so that's why, again, I love the Garrett AT Pros, is because when I hear that, I know it's a big, dense piece of iron there.
Yes.
That come out.
Right on. Now, Chris, can we talk about bullets? What's the most common Civil War bullet you find? I'm going to say it's the 3-ringer. Is that right?
It is. And, there was over 500 different types of bullets being fired during the Civil War. All the way from, I think, 21 caliber up to 70 something caliber.
Wow.
And I think 71 or 72.
Wow.
I don't remember exactly. But really large bullets down to little tiny bullets. The 69 and 70 caliber bullets, I could throw one at you and hurt you. Like, that's a big bullet. And but they're probably that's the most common Civil War find. And I think it's when people think of Civil War relic hunting, that's what they think of.
Yes.
And a lot of the new people who come that I've taken on relic hunting trips, that's what they want to find.
Well,
that's
for
the
sure.
First thing they want to find. They've always thought about, I want to find a 3-ringer.
Yes.
So.
Now, what would you say can you say, what is the most rarest Civil War bullet? Is that even, could you even answer that?
There's very rare ones. The Whitworths, they were kind of long, narrow sniper bullets. There's Carcano bullets that are pretty rare. There's a lot of very rare bullets. There's Shaler bullets, which were 3-piece bullets that came apart in midair.
Oh, cool.
There's a lot of very, very rare ones. Possibly, I guess the rarest ones I've found, there's 69 caliber Gardner bullets, which were a Confederate bullet. I found one of those. I found several Gardner blow-throughs, which is a bullet that was cast poorly and the nose blew out of the bullet. So it just looks like a tube if you look through it, I found some very rare pistol bullets, but I think that's kind of the neat thing about Civil War relic hunting, metal detecting. Every type of metal detecting is everybody finds different things. And, whereas I might find a bullet to be common, somebody who lives in Virginia or Mississippi or Georgia might never find those. And additionally, because of the supply issues that were faced during the Civil War, there's certain relics that if you don't live in a certain area, you're not going to find those relics. It's just the way it is. In southern Georgia, or in Georgia where I lived, there's cast Confederate infantry buttons are very common, very, very common. If you go to Virginia, you probably won't find one. And people do, but it's just not as common because they were produced in Rome, Georgia. And so, the supply kind of went regionally. And then there was button makers in Richmond, Virginia, who were making the buttons for the Army of Northern Virginia. And, there was the Army of Tennessee that was getting their supplies from here, and the Army of Mississippi that was getting their supplies from here. So It can vary regionally what type of bullets,
Mm-hmm.
relics, belt plates, all sorts of things that you
Mm-hmm.
can find.
Mm-hmm. Now, I from watching your videos, your most popular video with I can't remember how many hundreds of thousands of views was you found a Civil War frock, a coat. Can you tell us about that? What led
Sure.
you to find it, and just talk to us about that a little bit?
Sure. There was a site I'd been hunting for a while, and it was a home that had been built in the 1820s. And it was actually part of a larger estate property that was a Revolutionary War grant. And it was a very historic property. It had this beautiful home, and there was a log barn out back. And I had never really thought about the log barn much. And the owner told me one day that he was going to tear it down. And he said, "You might want to stick your head in there. There's some neat stuff in there." And I stuck my head in there, and first thing that caught my eye was a bunch of metal items laying everywhere. There was horse bits, and there was all Civil War era.
Mm-hmm.
And I found part of a bayonet and spur. And so I started sifting and screening through all this, just like imagine an old man's barn full of coffee tins with nails and, hinges and screws and this and that. And I started screening it and finding relics mixed in with it. So as I was there in the barn, there was a coat hanging on the wall, and I looked at it. The very first time I went in there, I looked at it, and I was like, even on film, I'm like, that looks like a Civil War officer's jacket.
Wow.
But I was so interested in all the metal stuff that day that I just kind of kept making dust and dirt. And I got home and I put up the video, and like immediately my phone started ringing. It was friends who were like, dude, like, why did you leave the Civil War jacket hanging in the barn? And so I got up the next morning, drove back over there and got it. And indeed, it was a Civil War frock coat. And beyond that, I found in that same barn, I started finding other evidence of whose it was. And I found a tag that said S.M. McCamey, Lieutenant S.M. McCamey. And if I remember right, it said 59th Tennessee Mounted Infantry, CSA. So, of course, immediately my eyes are like popping out of my head. I'm like, oh my God, Confederate States of America. And so upon doing some research, this guy indeed, had lived there. This was his jacket. There was his belt. There was a Confederate belt buckle in there, a snake buckle. There was just a whole bunch of artifacts that all kind of led back to this guy, S.M. McCamey. And I was able to find his grave and go visit his grave. So it was one of those things that just went full circle all the way around, to actually being able to connect it to a specific soldier. And I've had a couple relics like that now that I could draw directly to a specific soldier, which is pretty neat,
That's,
and to be able
that's
to
the ultimate in metal
find
detecting.
their grave.
Yeah.
Sure.
Now this is a bit of a weird question, but detecting, and I don't know if you detect battle sites or maybe skirmish sites, but have you ever had any sort of paranormal activity or incident or anything like that? Ever felt anything or?
Well, yes, only once. And it was in Perryville where the heart shape was that I showed you. It was where I found that. And I was there with Dad, and we had permission at this amazing location. We could camp there overnight if we wanted. And again, this is all part of the battlefield now. This was, 20 something years ago before this was actually battlefield property. And we had found thousands of relics in this field, bullets and shrapnel, artillery shells, bleeders, like medical tools where they were doing surgery, and that right across the street from there, they amputated like hundreds of limbs.
Wow.
And, you know, it was just a very heavy place.
Mm-hmm.
And we were out there, and the sun had gone down, the moon had come up, and it was just dark, dark, dark in that field. And when you can't see your, you know, whoever you're hunting with, you're looking around, you're kind of disoriented, didn't know where Dad was. And I've never seen my dad run. Like, I had never seen my dad run ever in my whole life. Never had seen him run. Like, we've seen bears within 10 feet of us. We've seen, you know, people getting mugged, people getting assaulted. Never seen him run. Like, and we're out here in the middle of the field. And like I said, I didn't see anything, would know where he was. And then all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, I see my dad, and he like runs past me, just running. Doesn't say a word, you know, just gone. And I'm thinking like, well, if he's running, like, I better run, you know? So I take off running too. And I turned around, and Dad was gone. I mean, he was running faster than me, and he had hit the pavement of the road and was running down the middle of the road. And I looked over my shoulder, and there was for lack of any better way to describe it, there was a column of mist. And it wasn't shaped like a person or anything, but it was the size of a person.
Wow.
And it was just this thing of mist moving across the field. And in that field, you could be out there in the summer, it'd be like 80 degrees at night.
Mm-hmm.
And in the summertime, and you'd feel these cold pockets in the field. And so I had known about these cold pockets, and people say it's because of the caves and, you know, stuff in Kentucky. Oh, there's, you know, a lot of geodes in that area, a lot of cave activity. And that was kind of always the explanation. But, you know, Dad had always been like, it's ghosts, you know, da, da, da. And then after that, after seeing that thing come across the field, and he ran and I ran, and we got back to the car, and he was like, did you see that? And I was like, yeah, what was it? And he was like, it was a ghost. And I don't know. Dad very much believes in ghosts. I'm a skeptic, but I did run. So whatever that tells you.
Wow. That's, wow. Heck of a story. Heck of a story. Holy smokes. Wow. Now, wow. Now, in World War I and World War II, soldiers were known to create trench art. Have you ever come across, like, did they do this in the Civil War? Have you ever found anything?
Sure.
And what does it look like, or what have you found?
They did a lot of trench art, bullet carving, gambling. They would make different things. In fact, just one sec.
Is there anything you don't have on your shelves?
Yes. Yes, there is. There's lots of stuff I don't have.
Okay. All right.
Always looking for something. One sec, though.
Okay. All right. Hey, if you're watching and you've joined me for the first time, thank you very much. And I seriously hope that after this stream, you will consider subscribing to my channel. And if you have not hit the like button on this stream already, take like a second and a half and whack it for more right now.
Boy, your timing on that was rough. So we talked about Heath Jones earlier.
Yes.
And there was a day I drove all the way to Georgia to metal detect with my buddy Mike. My buddy Mike, he's since died. But me and Mike and Heath Jones were in the woods of Georgia. It was like July. It was like 90 degrees. It was miserable. And I had driven like 4 hours to get down there. I found one relic all day. It was a Civil War bullet that had been carved. There's a PG rating on this.
Wow, really?
So this is the back of the bullet. You can see the rings.
Yes.
On the bottom.
Yes.
So, yeah, soldiers were bored in the trenches, to say the
guess.
least. And I've got several other. That was probably the worst example I could have pulled out. But
well,
they would carve dice,
Wow. Very nice.
And they would carve parts for their, that's a finial
Ah.
that would help close their cartridge box. They
Oh.
would carve chess pieces, all different sorts of things. And then they'd also do things like this. This is a 1852 dime. I'm trying to get it right in the light. Of course it won't. Sort of will. It's a love token though.
Ah.
And so it's got initials carved in the face of it. And then on the back of it, it's actually a 1852 dime that has a little pin soldered on it.
Very nice.
But yeah, they did a lot of trench art type stuff, and a lot of making tools and functional things they needed in the field.
Wow, that's right on. Now, Chris, you have collabed with some great people. You collabed with Aquachigger many times. JD, who it seems to be you're collabing with more. Zach Bird. Do you prefer to dig by yourself, or
yes,
you do?
Yes.
Okay.
In most cases, I do. I don't know why. I think, a lot of people enjoy the social aspect of metal detecting, and to an extent I do as well. But honestly, the reason I metal detect is because the second I put these on, everything else disappears. And I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to, I just do it to get away. And it makes me forget about everything else except what is going to be in that next discovery, what's going to be the next discovery. And so for me, it's a very sort of private thing, although I do enjoy, hunting with people. I enjoy friends, of course, obviously. JD is about 45 minutes from me, and him and I hang out a lot. He's a cool dude, interesting fella. And, I obviously love to hunt with Dad. We hunt whenever we can together. And, but largely I'm out alone. Hunting. It's just easier. And it allows me to just escape.
I remember watching a video where you found 3 cannonballs in one day, and you said, "Oh, my friends are gonna be upset because I went by myself."
Yeah, and that was supposed to be a scouting mission. It was like, I'm just gonna go see if it looks good. If it looks good, y'all come on down. And literally that day I found 3 cannonballs, and there's a clip no one will ever see. I do still have it, and it's pretty funny. But that day when I had those 3 cannonballs, for whatever reason, in my mind, and it happened in like 2 minutes. Literally, I found all 3 of them, just like bam, bam, bam. And I'm standing there with these 3 cannonballs. And for whatever reason, I felt like I needed to leave immediately. I was like, I need to go. Like, I've got 3 cannonballs. Like, I got to get out of here. And so I went over and set the boat on the shore, and I get these 3 cannonballs, and I'm trying to get up this steep cliff. And my camera was on. I didn't realize it. I'd been so kind of flustered by the whole thing that I'd left my camera on. And I get there, and I'm trying to get up this steep bank, and I'm carrying 3 cannonballs, and I had my head down. And as I'm walking up the bank, I hit my head on this tree branch and fall backwards like 25 feet back down this cliff.
Wow.
Like cannonballs just went flying. And it's just a funny clip,
Oh, my goodness.
You wouldn't know what would happen to watch the clip. It's just like sky and arms and me like, back down the cliff. But it was something funny that happened that day. It was actually fell off a cliff with all those cannonballs.
My goodness. Now it is actually after 11 o'clock, but
We better go.
Well, before we go, and I think we need to talk about this. You created a video series called the Civil War Diaries. I think we need to talk about that before you say goodbye. What was and if anyone hasn't seen an episode of the Civil War Diaries, you really, really need to. Why did you create it, and what's it all about?
Well, I created it because at the time I was stuck at home. I wasn't able to go out metal detecting. My dog was having surgery, and I knew I had a long period of time that I was going to be stuck at home, 180 days stuck at home on the floor with my dog. And so obviously I wasn't going to be able to be getting out and metal detecting as much as I'd like. And I wanted to continue to make relevant Civil War content. And much in the vein of my channel being a way to preserve my voice for my daughter in the future, Civil War soldiers wrote a lot of diaries and letters and things home, and to preserve what had happened to them. And there's so much of that material out there that is just forgotten, and stories that may never be told again, and some very amazing stories that helped shape our country and the history of the world, really largely, and the way slavery is viewed, and just it shaped the whole world. And these men are humble and hard as steel. I mean, the things they went through, it's unbelievable. They, to march 20 miles in a day in a pair of homemade socks, or no socks, or no shoes in the snow, and to have not eaten anything, or, the things they went through are immeasurable in modern society. And so it's a good way, recounting their stories, going back and trying to give them a voice again, is a good way to, I feel, honor the sacrifices they made, in some small way.
Now, not only did you share letters, but you've also shared some interviews with former soldiers, as well as, I think, some of your more just really, really hard hitting interviews that you shared. You did some actual slaves. And just them talking about what it was like was just, I think, is something that people today need to hear, need to learn.
I agree. And it's, those are some of the most poignant episodes I've ever done, in fact. And it's interesting psychologically, looking at my YouTube numbers, how some videos get watched, and those slave videos, it's almost like there's a fear to watch them. There's a low numbers on them. And I think it's a fear to watch them, to know what they're going to say, because it's disturbing, and, in a lot of respects.
Very, very disturbing.
But in the same breath, there's perspective to everything. There's also an interview with one of Jefferson Davis's slaves, and Jefferson Davis treated his slaves really well. They loved him. And then you go to another interview with a slave who was horribly tortured. And so it's a, the world is not a black and white place.
Now, have you found, and this is probably kind of like not really what the interview is about here, but have you found that anytime you have the word Civil War in your title, have you found that, or have you thought sometimes that maybe YouTube is suppressing those kind of videos just because of the title?
Absolutely. And in fact, there was a period of time where none of my videos could be monetized. And every time I put one up, it got demonetized. And it was just because it said Civil War in the title, or the thumbnail, or the whatever. And, I'm a Civil War channel. Like, how am I supposed to? So I had to get kind of sneaky for a while and say, CW, I don't know, and, but luckily they've kind of eased out of that, and I haven't really noticed anything lately. Whereas there was a period of time, maybe 6 to 8 months, where every video I put up got flagged, every single one of them.
Yeah.
And now they don't seem to as much, and I don't know if that's part of like their self-policing thing that they've got going now, or what. They just figured they could trust me. And, but I've always tried to put up good content without
Mhm.
cussing, without,
Yes.
you know, something that anybody can watch.
Mhm.
And I want to share history and find a way that it's palatable to everyone and where it's inclusive to everyone. And that's part of the, you know, doing things, Civil War diaries about Confederate generals, and then the next week doing them with slave interviews, because there's, like I said, the world's not black and white. Nothing is in life.
Mhm.
And there's always a perspective. And so I think
Yes.
the more we can understand all of these different perspectives, the more accepting we can be of those around us, and just a better world we're going to have
Mhm.
in general.
Mhm. Very, very well said. Now, as we wrap things up, you your humble little channel that you like created so long ago, I think you're past 7,000 subscribers. Did you ever think that that was going to happen?
No. And, you know, YouTube's a strange place, as you know, and there's hurdles, and there's excitement, and there's challenges. But you know, it's been a great experience. I haven't tried to push the channel very hard, and so I've been surprised to see it go as much as it has. I have several other channels. Some people know about, some people don't. Some that are more successful, some that are less successful.
Mhm.
Uh, but this one's been a great place for me to connect with a lot of
Mhm.
people, and I've
Mhm.
enjoyed and felt like they were true connections
Mhm.
in here at this channel. So
Mhm.
I appreciate everybody who's ever tuned in, for sure.
Right on. Now, are you on social media anywhere other than YouTube?
A little bit, but not often. I try not to be. I feel it's sort of anti-social media, isn't it?
That's an interesting way of putting it. I got to say, that's the first time I've heard that.
Well, you know, I mean, nobody hangs out with each other anymore. You just talk like this. It seems
Yes.
antisocial to me, but
Yes, this is
call
true.
it what you will.
Hmm.
I do have Facebook, and I think you can find the BirdDogg on there, although I'm
Hmm.
not very active anymore. Right now I'm spread very thin with work and just trying to keep things going in life, as everyone is.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yes.
but I am on social media there, yes.
Okay. All right. So what's next for Chris? Is there anything from metal detecting that you'd like to do, haven't done yet, or?
Well, I just got a boat built at the end of last season, a new boat built, got a motor on it, a little gas engine, and I'm fired up, ready to go get in the water down in Georgia. It's really right now just a matter of the water levels are too high. And so I'm kind of waiting on water levels to drop. I do have some adventures planned here locally.
Mm-hmm.
I just relocated from Chattanooga back up to Bristol, Johnson City, Tennessee area. And so I'm getting my feet on the ground again, trying to get some spots lined up again. But
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll be seeing some more water hunting videos coming out here before long.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Excellent. Any parting words, Chris, to the folks that are watching today?
Just that I hope you guys get outside. I hope you guys enjoy yourselves. Try not to stress all the little stuff in life. It's just stupid stuff. Just go out, enjoy your life, have a great day in the life. And yeah, I appreciate everybody who stops in. Everybody like and subscribe to Liz here. She needs to get her subscribers up to 7,000. She'll pass the BirdDogg before long, I'm quite sure. So thank you to everybody for supporting the community and for supporting Liz and metal detecting. Go out there and do it.
Right on. Thank you so very much, Chris. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've been
Thank you, Liz.
I've been watching your videos for such a long time, and just to be able to chat with you has just been, it's wonderful. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you for having me.
All right. Everybody say goodbye to Chris. If you're not subscribed to his channel, BirdDogg is the channel you need to be subscribing to. Thank you, Chris. I'm just going to switch up the screens and say goodbye to everybody. So thanks again.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Wonderful. Wonderful. Wow. My goodness. Wow. Thank you so very much. Again, Chris and a ton of people. Joel Drummer Detect, Me Miner, Outdoorsy Gal joined us. Darcy Kep Valley joined us. 𝗦𝗛𝗎 has posted a new video today, and he introduced us to his little puppy. So check that out if you can. I just want to say that if you have, before I wrap things up, if you have a suggestion, oh my goodness.
B-E-N-D-E-R, Bender, saying B-E-N-D.
Boom, 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 boom. That is Steve Canadian Relic Recon. He is going to be part of the Great Canadian Collab coming soon to a channel near you. If you have an idea for a guest, if there's somebody that you'd like to see me chat with on a Sunday, please send me an email. And if you have any sort of pull with anybody who might be popular and who you might have a little bit of influence over, suggest perhaps that they contact me to be on the show one day. I would really, really appreciate that. Before we go, I just want to say that today's Coffee with Liz is going to be the last Coffee with Liz for the summer season. So Coffee with Liz will resume in September with some super guests. And I want to thank you all for joining me Sunday mornings. And like I said, the weather is really, really nice now. So I think we should all be getting out, doing some metal detecting on Sunday morning. I really, really don't want to keep you or anything like that. So we will resume Coffee with Liz in September. But in the meanwhile, if you need to get your Liz fix, and I would really appreciate it if you did, join me every Thursday evening at 7 p.m. for Off the Cuff. We will still be doing that throughout the rest of the summer. If you're not already subscribed to the channel and you're just watching today for the first time, consider subscribing to the channel. I would really, really appreciate that. And again, thank you so very much for joining. Thank you, Chris, the BirdDogg. Thank you to the super chatters. Thank you to the members. Absolutely thrilled and humbled by you all. I can't say that enough. Please be safe. Please be safe. I'll see you all again in September. And yeah. Thank you. Coffee with Liz has been an absolute pleasure. Just thank you. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the views. Thank you for the comments and all that sort of thing. I honestly cannot say that again or enough. Thank you. That is going to be it for today. My name is Liz. It has been an absolute pleasure. Enjoy the rest of your day, and remember to keep it real. Get your official Diggy Connect merchandise at Teespring. Mugs, t-shirts, hoodies, and more. Remember that every purchase you make helps to support the channel. Check out the link in the description down below.